Welcome to another edition of the RF Video Shoot interview series. Today we're joined by none other than a true legend in the sport of professional wrestling, Warriror Animal. Thanks for being here.
It's always a pleasure to be a part of RF Videos, man. I love it. You guys do a great job.
Thank you. Last time we sat down with you was about 8 years ago. It was May of 2000. So we're going to pick up where we left off. My very first question would be how did you wind back up in WCW when you started as a singles again, when Hawk was out for a little bit?
WCW was kind of, I got a call, they were doing a thing with Steiner with the straitjacket thing, and it was a perfect opportunity at the time. I feel that WCW was right on the brink of turning it around because it already turned, their house shows were getting better, TV ratings were boosting up, and our gimmick, Rob, we've always been a part of, helping each company we've gone in there. If the ratings start climbing, we help them climb even higher, and that was just part of our Road Warrior gimmick. And it was an opportunity for me. Hawk was out with the cardiomyopathy thing with his heart, right? So he couldn't do anything. And what a perfect swerve. Everybody thought it was going to be Rick Steiner coming down in a straitjacket. So I came through the curtain with the straitjacket going, barking like Steiner, like an idiot. Sorry, Steiner. But it was perfect time for me to act like a fool. And the only bad part about it is that Sid broke his leg.
Right.
If Sid wouldn't have broke his leg, I was supposed to go down there and powerbomb Sid, and could you imagine the reaction of the people if I'd have powerbombed the big SOB?
Right.
Bam! And then all of a sudden, next thing you know, Sid was about the only big babyface guy other than Goldberg that I probably could have got some heat on to be a heel. And if I would have been tagging up with Papa Pump and Rick Steiner, and it would have been perfect,
Definitely. I was going to ask you, what do you remember about the night that Sid broke his leg?
Well, I remember that Sid didn't want to do it, and my brother, who was the boss, forced him to do it, and when Sid landed, his leg just buckled, man. It was shaped like the letter L, straight across. And I've never seen anything so gross in my life.
Oh, yeah.
Everybody, our business is what it is, and everybody knows, who's going up and who's going down. But, man, things happen in our business that are shooting. That was a real-life shoot right there,
I was going to ask you, how political was it in WCW when you went back?
You definitely had to be an in guy. And at that time, Eric Bischoff was the man. He was the boss. He was ruling the roost, and Hawk and I had a little bit of problems with Eric early on, but then Eric and we kind of smoothed everything over. And, you have to kind of smooth things over there to get put in a top spot at that time in WCW. Because at that spot, Page and Hogan and Sting and all those guys were running the show.
Right.
You know what I mean? So I think it would have definitely been a good part of the business. It would definitely help the business, I think.
When you were there earlier on, it was in the late 80s, I believe. Now, when you went back, how different was it as far as the locker room?
Locker room wasn't bad. It was like the old NWA locker room. I mean, Flair was there. All the guys were there still, You just had very few guys at the time were at WWF at the time.
Right.
And very few guys were taking that leap. Nobody wanted to go to WWF at that time. WCW and the NWA had there was a calmness and I don't want to be corny and say a family sense of locker room, but the boys all trusted each other. And the WWF at the time didn't have that trust. Later, when it turned WWE, the trust started coming back because you had most of the NWO, the NWA guys, the WCW guys were all in WWE. So it was in a sense the WCW locker room going WWE.
Right.
So the guys are the guys in the locker room, man. You've been in locker rooms before. The guys all trust each other. Boys are pretty much the boys. A little different now, though.
Oh, yeah. I was going to ask you, what are your memories of the booking committee in WCW when you went back?
Well, I don't know. Those committees never work. I think WWE's seeing now that their committees aren't working. I didn't hear great reviews of WrestleMania, so I don't know. But, the booking committees, you have to have a single boss saying, hey, which everybody knows right now is Vince McMahon. There's got to be the same guy saying, yes, I like that. No, I don't like that. The committees don't work. It's great to have a committee to get ideas. I believe you get more done with more minds involved on getting ideas of top guys. I think that's one of the things that's hurting WWE right now is they don't have enough. Their guys are running a show, never sold out anywhere. That's the problem with WWE, And so, we got to stop here for a second.
That's okay.
I'll read feedback into that. Anyway.
I'll just edit it.
Okay. Thanks, Bob.
No problem.
Thank you. Grab water. Thanks.
Joe, Pepsi or water?
I think a Pepsi right now. I waterlogged myself on a plane.
Here's change. There's another water and another Pepsi.
I get to waterlog after flying on these planes.
Yeah. Planes.
I drink a gallon of water at night. Right.
We were just talking about the committee.
Yeah, booking committees. I don't know booking committees. WCW had the booking committee at one time. I think my brother John had just come in at that time. Dallas Page and my brother were good friends, so he got my brother in there. And I got to admit, my brother was turning it around a little bit right there at the end of WCW. That's why when it sold, I was very surprised. But if you have the right guys on the committees, they're going to work. But if history repeats itself, the committee's never made grade.
Right. When you went back to WCW, was it hard to go in without Hawk?
Every part of the business I ever tried to do without my partner, it's like trying to make Italian salad dressing without oil and vinegar. You know what I mean? Everywhere we went, we found out real quick in the wrestling business, you may last 6 months, you may last a year doing a single gig. The people always wanted to see Animal and Hawk the Road Warriors. We always knew. We always fed off each other. We always knew. I knew when he was in the ring, if he was lost, I knew exactly what to do and tell him here's where we're at. We just knew what each other was thinking without even saying it a lot of times.
Who was the locker room? Well, who was the leader of the tag team? Put it that way.
Well, it wasn't a secret that I was the business guy.
Right.
I was. Hawk would say, "Hey, Animal, let me know what the match is. Let me know what I got to do."
I was going to ask you who the captain was.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, that's what Ellering called it. Ellering said, "Animal, you're a captain of the team. Just go." And I'm a lot like my kid right now that's playing ball at Ohio State. He's that kind of leadership deal. I'm kind of the same way. I always said, "Hey, throw it on my shoulders. I'll make sure he knows what's going on and what to do." And he was a consummate performer. I only had to tell him once what to do, and Hawk could feed off it, and he knew what's going on. So,
right. Were there plans to bring Hawk in when he got healthy?
Definitely. At the time, I was going to do the ultimate swerve because being such an over baby face, even as a single, coming down and turning with the Steiners at the time, I knew it was only going to be 6 months before Hawk would come and we would turn babyface on the Steiners. That was the plan.
Right.
Is to wait till Hawk comes back and he and I would turn with Sid against the Steiner brothers. Then you would have had the team against team that people wanted to see, that they never got to see, except for one Crockett Cup.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I think it was what was a Crockett Cup?
Yeah.
Once or twice we wrestled. That was it.
Yeah. As far as Ric Flair, you got to work with him a little bit again, right? What was it like working with Rick?
Well, Flair, someday if I'm lucky enough, which I think, and there's been talking about it going in the Hall of Fame, I owe a lot to Ric Flair. Ric Flair being a leader of the Four Horsemen thing. I remember even when I started as a single wrestler in North Carolina by myself, Ric Flair was there, and he and Jack Briscoe and Greg the Hammer Valentine and Roddy Piper all helped me out. I mean, there's Jack Briscoe at the time let me slam him on TV, and Ric Flair, when he was the world champ in Carolina at the time, he let me slam him on TV too. And I was just a young, wet behind the ears kid. I knew nothing, but that's how these guys could see the future of the wrestling business go. And then when Hawk and I got into business, of course, being Minnesota guys and, and Flair being from Minnesota, it was an instant connection right there. But Flair commanded respect. And you could see by his work that he was, and he is to this day, only one guy was close to Flair, and that was Curt Hennig as far as work.
Right.
I think, anyway. Mr. Perfect was an excellent wrestler. But Ric Flair was the man. And, to be the man, you got to beat the man. That's Ric Flair. And we learned a lot from Flair.
What are your thoughts about his recent retirement?
That's great, man. That's the best thing that happened to wrestling. I mean, they did it right for Rick. That's the only guy that's retired that they've done it right for.
Without a doubt.
Rick, well, you can see the appreciation there. The only thing that was wrong about Ric Flair retiring and all the stuff on TV is that they should have brought me on there. I mean, I'm not saying it me because of me, but most of my career in the 80s and the early 90s was against the Four Horsemen.
Right.
And Ric Flair. And I traveled with Flair. I brought Flair's Cabbage Patch dolls back for his daughter Megan and little Japanese little kind of car racing sets for his son David at the time. I brought all those stuff back to Minnesota for him. We were closer, a lot of people thought. I kind of was really insulted that I didn't get a call to say, "Hey man, this is a great WrestleMania here. Flair's going to retire. You're a good buddy of Flair. Come on in and be a part of the celebration." But hey, you know the way WWE is.
Are you still tight with your brother up there? Or?
Yeah, you know, I'm tight with my brother now. Everybody's tight with me now. My kid's playing good football.
Right.
You know, I hate to say it like that, but you know, it's not as tight as it should be. You know, there's a lot of mixed feelings there. You know, personally, you know, see, a guy like me, and I'm being as modest as I can, I've learned from the best. What the hell am I doing sitting home?
You want to be back in the ring? Or?
Oh, no, I don't want to be back in the ring. I should be
behind the scenes.
I should be teaching tag teams.
Right.
Their tag teams are horrendous. I know tag team wrestling. I know interviews. I mean, Hawk and I had some of the best promos in wrestling. Let me help teach these guys, man. What am I sitting at home for? Bradshaw and I, we were at a recent UFC fight in Columbus. And Bradshaw, JBL company, says, "What the hell are you doing home?" He goes, "We miss you in our locker room." I said, "Bro, I miss you guys too." You know, there's that era of guys there that knew. I mean, you got JBL, myself, and Taker. And whenever Taker's ready to leave, bro, us three together could work phenomenally behind the scenes and teach guys.
Without a doubt.
And that's what the business needs.
Did you ever ask the office about that?
Wow, man, there's a lot of nepotism.
Right.
Rob nepotism. That comes from the high horse there.
Right.
You know, but then again, you got his daughter and his kid and everybody working there, so what the heck? Who knows? Who knows what nepotism really means?
Back with WCW, when you went back there, what was it like working with Scott Steiner around that time period? Did he change a lot because he was a lot bigger in the ring?
You know, I've known Scotty since Scotty was working for Bill Watts down there in the territory down there in Louisiana. And, you know, Scotty rode with us when he first came to WCW, actually when it was NWA.
Right.
And then when it all got turned around and we went to Japan for a while and came back, now Scotty was one of the big top dogs in WCW. And Scotty. To us, he was always Scotty. And I kind of got disappointed because we were looking forward to doing some stuff together. And Sid getting hurt really screwed up everything. And when WWF at the time bought WCW, it just killed a lot of stuff.
Right.
You know, they only kept very few guys around, and it just kind of ruined a lot of things.
What do you remember about the sale going down? What are your...
Well, I remember we were at the last, what was it, Bash on the Beach?
Yeah.
I think it was, right? And I remember it was, I think, live on Raw, if I'm not mistaken, was Monday Night Raw.
Yep.
And Vince is on there talking, and he said, "Yo, there's Rick Steiner and Road Warrior Animal," and it got a very good cheer, you know. And I'm very surprised that Vince did not take advantage of that time period right there, you know, because even when I went to WWE with Heidenreich,
right.
Vince would give me little jabs. "Are we going to hear the Road Warrior pop today, Animal?" And I said, "Well, you never know, Vince." And you know, you got to love the fans, man. The fans never let you down. Every time I've ever stuck my head through the curtain, whether it was TNA, WCW, WWE, WWF, I've always got the pop, so it was pretty cool.
Did you think Bischoff was going to buy WCW? Because there was talks at one point that he might have a company that was going to back him.
Well, I was hoping that Bischoff and Hogan were going to buy it.
Right.
I mean, seriously, let's face it, in this business, that's why UFC and MMA are growing like crazy right now, because they have MMA and UFC. You can't have the NFC without the AFC in football. You can't have one company own the whole business. It's okay for now for a good 10, 12, 15-year period, but you got to have two separate companies. I heard that Hogan might start his own company, and I hope he does.
Right.
Because he's about the only guy that probably could do it and get enough guys to change over to work for him other than Vince, you know. And I think our business needs more companies. And I also think our business needs to take care of the guys a little better, to be honest with you.
As far as what, like...
Well, I don't know if you need a union, you know, but you need something. You need something to clear up that little cloudy area of independent contractor employee.
You think guys should get health benefits? Or
I think they should go without a doubt and get health benefits. But here's the good thing about WWE anyway. If you do get hurt, they pay for anything.
Right.
So it's like you have a health benefit, but you got to pay for your own health benefits ahead of time, you know? And you don't really use the health benefits you pay for. If you get really hurt, they pay for the operation through their health system.
Right.
So it's kind of a weird situation. They kind of like pay for it for you working for them kind of deal. It's kind of like an unwritten rule.
What do you thought about the new policy regarding anybody that has maybe drug or alcohol problems? They now are, telling any of the boys that they could come to Vince or to the office and they'll pay for the rehab. Do you think that's...
Well, I think that's pretty cool. I mean, at least you're not just throwing them away.
Right.
I mean, a lot of places, a lot of companies now are throwing you away. I think it needs to be strict. only for the health and welfare of the guys. I'm not being a hypocrite because back when things were legal, I did what I needed to do into the ring to be 325-pound animal. But now, when guys start acting like a Pac-Man Jones and this kid Henry that just got let go by Cincinnati Bengals, you know, how many times you got to get your hand slapped before you open up your eyes and realize you're losing millions of dollars? Don't be an idiot.
Right.
When the guys start being an idiot, that means something's got to control their soul that they cannot control. So somebody's got to step in and be man enough to say, let's fix this kid, or let's give an opportunity. I like this 3-strike rule myself. Let the kid screw up once, he screws up twice, third time, hit the road. It's kind of like what they did to Heidenreich. I mean, you kind of really didn't respect the Gimmick a lot, or the company, and
right.
they let him go finally. You know, they gave guy a lot of chances.
I'm going to ask you about him coming up later on, definitely.
All right.
What about Lex Luger? What are your memories of Lex around this time period in the 90s?
Well, Lex was always arrogant at that time. At that particular time in the 90s, Lex was, for lack of a word, an asshole.
Right.
I mean, you know, Lex was arrogant. Lex thought he was the consummate worker, which he wasn't. I love you, Lex. Please don't get mad at me, but Lex wasn't exactly the smoothest guy. You know, and his body's paying for a lot of that now, man. His hips and his back and his knees and, you know, but hey, he changed his life around now. You know,
I was going to ask you, what are your thoughts on how things turned out for Lex?
You know, they're probably turning out better than he probably thought they would. I don't think they could have gotten very much lower than where he took himself. You know, when your girlfriend dies in your house and you pretty much lost everything you had to do with family life, and you know, and you get both hips replaced, whatever he just had done with himself here, and you hit rock bottom. You know, one person without selling the corner, you can turn to is God, and God's always going to be there. And Lex has finally seen, it's not so much being a Bible banger, it's just the fact, like Hawk and I talk about, road A, road B. Don't go road A, we've been there. We're trying to tell you, go road B. By experience. And, you know, you only tell guys so many times. Now, Lex had to figure it out for himself. Best thing Lex could have done was get a hold and get locked in with Nikita.
Right.
Nikita's a little over the top, but, you know, he's a good guy.
Were you in Florida for the last Nitro?
This last one this was?
No, yeah, the very last one at the beginning. Okay, you weren't. What would you have done in WCW if it was never sold, such as your role? Just you pretty much would have been back.
If it wasn't sold, I would have given me a big push with the Steiners, let us get a lot of steam, and then, you know, behind the scenes, do a little bit of stuff of me talking on the phone and them catching me back on screen talking on the phone. Hey, man, I cannot wait for you to come back, bro. And so the fans could see, but where the Steiners didn't know. You know what I mean?
Right.
Kind of set the little angle a little bit, and then when it came time and we were jumping and kicking, preferably Hogan or somebody, a real good babyface, or Goldberg, kicking somebody's butt, and everybody's watching me just standing there not doing it. All of a sudden, Steiner start turning on me like, hey, man, what are you doing? And now here comes Hawk. And now you just set the tone, you know?
As far as when Vince bought the company, WCW that is, did you have any idea that it was coming, or did it take you by surprise?
You know, we heard so many rumors that it was going to happen, the buyout situation, that really nobody took it for real.
Right.
Until that night it happened and went on TV when Vince cut into our show on TBS.
That's
and we said, whoa, this is pretty heavy, man.
Right.
This is really going down. And everybody was really kind of surprised.
Did you attempt to negotiate for Vince to pick up your contract at all, or
No.
did you have any idea that your career was over with WCW? And I mean,
you know, it was really kind of a choice. Those who wanted to stay can stay, and those who wanted to go, and we just chose to go to Japan. To be honest with you.
for New Japan.
New Japan, yeah.
How did that work out?
Worked out great. It was Hawk and I and who was it? Hawk and I and I think the Steiner brothers. Well, Hawk and I and Kinski against the Steiners and Norton. So we took that around the horn a lot, and that drew a lot of money. Sold out a couple of Tokyo Domes for them, you know, and worked great. Oh yeah.
Did you guys have any plans in the States to do anything else, or
No, we really didn't think about doing it. We figured sooner or later they'd have to call us.
right?
You know, I mean, sooner or later, as far as tag teams go, you really didn't have your choice of great tag teams in the United States. You either had us or the Steiners. And the Steiners weren't coming back anytime soon.
Right.
Not at all. You know, so you had us, and eventually we got our tryout again.
How did you guys get involved with Ted DiBiase and Nikita's group?
Well, there was a situation that occurred. My son James that plays for Ohio State. I was wrestling, and it comes back to James because James is a real spiritual kid without me ever pushing anything on James. I was actually in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and I was wrestling. Nikita gave me his book he's got called Breaking the Change. He wrote the Guide to Christian Living book. Right. Like everybody else, he gave me the book. I went to throw up my bag, and for whatever reason that night I sat there and it stuck to my hands and I read it from the back. I couldn't tell you why. I never read it before. I threw it in the garbage can. I'm sorry, Nick. But the other ones I all threw away. That one I read front to back, and when I went out there, my choice of words were different that night for some reason. I don't know why. Nikita pointed them out to me instead of telling Mr. Perfect, hey, get in here, I'm going to kick your ass. Get in here, I'm going to kick your butt. Why did I change? I don't know. Now I know back looking at it why I did, but now I didn't know it then. So when I got home, about 12 hours later, I told my wife, hey, drop me off. I'm going to get a drink at my gym. I'm going to work out. I like working out after I fly. So I go get a drink of water. I turn around. There's 6 320-pound guys around you ever heard of the Christian Power Team? The guys that break blocks of ice and bend frying pans and rip phone books and bend steel bars. Well, they were all in my gym. Now Nikita has been pressuring me with the Christian stuff for months. Right. I finally read his book. Then I have 6 Christian guys behind me in my gym. Either somebody's trying to say, hey, this is a wake-up call or something, or just listen to what we got to say. Right. So they asked me if I had Jesus in my life, and I said, absolutely not, because I didn't like they did, They invited me to this event that night, and they were in a church called Living Word Christian Center. They had 10,000 people at this church. Well, I figured there's a big crowd. Half of them will know who wrestlers are, and they'll know me. So I said, well, I'm going to go. And it's kind of your ego kicks in. I said, So I go, and I bring my family there, and I look up on the screen, and there's my big fat head on the screen. And I said, oh, no. Who's going to be seeing this? Are they going to think that I'm like DiBiase or then like Nikita or like Jake Roberts saying I believe in God and go pick up the next hooker down the street, At that time, that's what Jake was doing. He may have straightened out now, but that's what he was doing then, So I watched him break it up. I could break that. I could break that. That's nothing. So then it came time where they call an altar call, where you can say a sinner's prayer and ask God to forgive you for your sins, but you got to do it in confession of the whole 10,000 people as witness. So they're asking, can people come up now? Now go up. I'm going, oh crap, who's going to be? I'm saying no way, and I'm putting on the brakes. James was 12, grabbed my hand and said, Daddy, let's go. He kind of broke down my wall. At that time, we all walked up. Now, I'm never going to be perfect. I never claim to be perfect. I'm not going to be perfect. Nobody is perfect. I don't believe you have to read the Bible 24/7 to be a believer either. But I do believe there's this Holy Spirit because I know my life has changed with it, okay? I know it's changed my family. It's protected one of my boys has been over in Iraq twice for 2 tours in a war. He came back alive. It's blessed my daughter being one of the best girl hockey players in the state of Minnesota. My son has had 3 phenomenal years at Ohio State, and he's not been hurt at all. And I've been a decent Christian guy going to church, reading the Bible, and different things. So there's no secret that putting the 2 and 2 together made a difference in my family and my life. Where it helped Hawk out in the end before Hawk passed away is that the last 5 years of Hawk's life, the one event I watched he and Shawn Michaels cry like babies, asking God for forgiveness of their sins. So that's how it changed me. And then from it changing me, my partner changed. Then our whole outlook looked different. And at that time, DiBiase was running his events for the Heart of David Ministries. And he would get the main event would be us and Sting against Greg DeHammer, Beefcake, and Rick Steiner. Wow. I mean, the people would get that kind of a match at a Christian event. We outdrew WWE. They were in Lincoln, Nebraska. We were in Omaha. We had 5,000 people outside in the parking lot. They only had 2,500 in the building. I mean, when we went head up with them, and we weren't trying to go head up, we just happened to, bro, it was the power of God at that time, because we were not advertising. The churches were doing it. No secular advertising, like, papers or commercials, nothing. And, it helped, man. It helped my kids, and it helped keep them straight. And
does it bother you, I guess, when other guys question the sincerity of people like yourself? And
well, I could see if it was a 1-year deal, but he's 21 years old now. It's been 10 years.
Right.
It ain't like I did it once and didn't do it again. It's not like I'd say, I mean, I've known you for a while. I know my friend Bob. I don't go saying, hey, I can't talk to you, man. You don't believe in God.
Right.
Come on, let's not BS each other. God knows I'm going to slip up and I'm going to say ass. I may even Effenheimer, which I will Effenheimer. I'm in a wrestling business. But he knows I'm a good guy, and I'll say, hey, man, I'm sorry. I blew my cork and I let it go. And he'll forgive me for it. You know, I'm not worried about going to hell or anything because I've never killed anybody. And I believe you got to kill somebody to go to hell. I believe if God's God, he's going to forgive you. So that's where I'm at with that.
How did Hawk and Shawn Michaels make peace? Because I know the last time we did an interview with Hawk, he didn't have a lot of good things to say about Shawn.
No, well, I tell you, they made peace, to be honest with you, at that convention.
Right.
Athletes International Ministries convention. Shawn was there. Hawk had asked me. I told Hawk, I said, man, Mike, I said, you may not want to go. It's a Christian event. He goes, no, I'll go. I said, you sure you want to go? He goes, yeah, let me I'll call you right back. He talks to Dale, his wife. Comes in, yeah, Dale and I want to go. Now, Dale, to this day, I don't think still believes. I still don't believe she believes all the way because she fought it tooth and nail. You know, and after he died, she thought people were trying to use Mike's death as a platform for their Christianity, which I don't believe they did. But, you know, it was if a guy has a chance to be sincere, he's sincere, you know, like Nikita or Ted or somebody, you know. So, but I did watch Hawk and Shawn put their arms around each other, kneel down, and in front of all of us. Now, there's guys there with Super Bowl rings on, pro wrestlers, you know, Joe Jackson who played football, everybody. And they're crying like babies saying, Shawn saying, man, I can't believe I did what I did. And my life was a mess. And I've, you know, cleaned it up. And Hawk did it for the very first time that day. And everybody knew Hawk's attitude. He didn't do anything halfway. If he believed in something, it was 150 miles an hour or nothing. And that's what he did with this. And what he started to believe, you know.
How did you guys wind up in TNA for the surprise appearance? How did that come about?
Which one was that?
It was for Jerry Jarrett when they were doing the pay-per-views.
Yeah, but do you talk about the one I did with Steiner?
I think you guys didn't you guys go in together, you and Hawk, for one time?
We did for a few shows, right?
Right.
But we never did a pay-per-view with them, I don't think.
Maybe it was just their TV.
Yeah, we did a couple of TV tapings for TNA, and I was actually surprised it didn't go on longer than it did because we got Dixie Carter loved us. We got along good with Dixie. Of course, we did a 6-man with Jeff.
Right.
Got a standing ovation. And I don't really understand what happened because their ratings were horrendous. And when Hawk and I were on there, the ratings jumped up a whole 2 points when we were on.
Do you think it was a money issue or?
Well, I don't know because we weren't charging them that much money. I mean,
Right.
we were giving them a break because they knew they were starting. I just think they knew where it's probably going to head. You know, as a matter of fact, when I was at a football game, Michigan and Ohio State last year. I was at a row 70, and as I walking up, I said, who do I see in the stands? Scotty Steiner. I said, what are you doing here? He goes, yeah, I got to talk to you. I said, okay, game's over. And he came down and talked to me about talking to Jeff with TNA. So that's what I'm in the process of doing now is I'm talking with TNA to see if I can't work out something with them. I'm not going to wait all year for WWE. If I could help out the wrestling business, TNA is like the NWA. That's the way I look at it. I would love to help out TNA. I know all the guys there. I think I'd be a great agent there too. You know, so.
What are your thoughts on Jeff Jarrett as a person? Do you like him or?
Jeff's a great guy. Yeah, Jeff's a great guy. See, Jeff's a good buddy of mine with Owen Hart, man. Jeff and Owen were close, and Owen and I were close, you know. So we had a lot of, you know, cross-collateralization with friends there, you know.
What are your thoughts on Vince Russo? I think you were in a match with him when you guys were with TNA, right? Or was he involved in something that you guys did?
He was involved in something with TNA. I think he was a little bit behind the scenes. You know, I really don't know Vince Russo good enough. The part I know about Vince Russo now, I know he changed his belief system too.
Right.
And I give him all the credit in the world because it's real hard in this wrestling business to keep focus. And I think that with, you know, the WCW end of it, when Vince was with WWF, I think he let that get to his head a little bit. And he had a lot of favoritisms with the DX thing and all that. And he looked right past the people that were drawing the money for the company. Because all he had to do was look at the sales of marketing stuff, and he would have seen, Jax could have told him where Hawk and I were number 1 and 2 in sales. I mean, in all their merch, you know, action figures. So,
right.
And Russo didn't take that into heart.
Did you get along with Vince?
Yeah, got along with him great. just it was that long of stints because he had his favorites there that were in his ear all the time at the time when he was with WWF.
Right. Now, you and Hawk made a one-time appearance. I think it was against RVD and Kane back in 2003. How did that come about?
Philly.
Right.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were sitting there, not in limbo, but did our tours in Japan. We were ready to finish up maybe and have one last big run in WWE at the time, because it wasn't WWE then. We were in Philadelphia, and of course, great city like this, we've always had great success in Philadelphia at the Civic Center and here. Got a standing ovation, crowd went nuts. They should have did that night is they should have put the belts right on us that night against RVD and Kane. They should have. There was the way the reaction of the crowd was, when I caught RVD with to do that big spin kick and I caught him in the air and powerbombed the one arm and then Hawk caught Kane with the clothesline off the top, it was over. Let's go home.
Right.
But, Hawk wanted to prove to Vince that he's going to be a good businessman. He says, hey, beat me. And they beat him that night, And that's the kind of guy he was. That's where his attitude was that night. And then the next night, which we couldn't understand why they didn't bring us in right away, because the next night we were in Baltimore. Vince is trying to do promos. He's getting all pissed off, yelling in the background, what the heck is going on? Why is there so much noise? And somebody says, Vince, LOD's in the ring. And he goes, all right, time out. So, there's a situation of business where the boss let past garbage get in the way of making money. Because he had passed heat with Hawk from years ago.
I was going to ask, yeah.
And Vince still held he did hold a bad grudge. And we should have made money. We were willing to say, throw the ball on our backs. Throw it on our backs now. Let us run with it. You don't have a Warrior. You don't have Hogan. You don't have anybody. Throw it on the LOD's backs finally. You don't ever put any faith in a tag team. Here's your chance. Let's do it.
Why do you think that is that Vince doesn't put?
I don't know if it's double the pay or whatever. I don't know. In our situation, he really had a problem with my partner.
Why? What's them?
Well, he called up during a couple of his drunken or high tirades and threatened to kill his family. And, that guy takes it a little personal, so that you threaten to kill his family. Vince, I'm going to kill you, you're young, Well, I'm going to strangle you young, with their fallopian tubes, But that was just Hawk, and that was the way he was. And everybody knew it wasn't him talking. That was just the time. You got to understand, he had little demons, Jake Roberts in his ear like this and Beefcake in the other ear. And Vince don't like you, man. He don't like you. He's screwing you, and he blew it. He blew it. He stayed, and everybody else came back and did TV, and Hershey, Hawk, and the Berserker, and Jim Neidhart stayed and went to the pot restaurants in Amsterdam. And they never came back. So that's pretty much ended the WWF stint.
What were your thoughts on working with Rob and Kane? Easy?
Great guys. Yeah.
How well received were you by the rest of the locker room that night?
I thought phenomenal. The locker room to me was happy to have us there, man. We were going to, all right, we're going to start selling out some houses. At that time, the houses were not selling out at that time,
Right.
There were two good markets right there, Philly and Baltimore, which they did great business, but,
Well, Hawk, in an interview I think he did after that, he said the match sucked. Did you agree with that?
Oh, the match was horrible.
Right.
Oh, because we could feel it in our bones it wasn't the right way to go. And it wasn't the right way to go. We should have went over. It was, even Kane and RVD knew that. We got the louder pop. They were your babyface tag team, and we out-popped them. What does that tell you? Let's do something. Vince is the ultimate shocker. He prides himself on being the ultimate shocker. Let's shock the kayfabe shoots. Right. Let's shock everybody. Let's shock the shoot interviews. Let's shock everybody. And here's your chance. And he didn't take advantage of it.
Well, did you guys have any apprehensions about going in just for the one night and doing the job? Or
no, because we didn't think it was going to be the one night only deal. You know what I mean? We planned on going in there and doing business.
Right. What kind of feedback did you guys receive after the match?
Oh, BS feedback. Oh, you look slow. Oh, yeah, I look slow? How come my power slam was 4 feet off the ground?
Right.
How come I caught Van Dam with one arm and powerbombed him with one arm? Evidently something looked right. The crowd went crazy. I didn't take too much into consideration what any of the guys said behind the scenes,
Who Who'd you guys work the next night? Who was it again?
Oh, it was just a
dark match, right?
Dark match, yeah. We slaughtered a couple guys, and of course that's going back. That's what the people wanted to see. What everybody kept saying is, "Oh, you just can't go in there and kill guys." Oh, yeah, well, hello, the Road Warriors can, because that's what people wanted to see.
Hawk did some interviews about a book he was putting out. Did you ever get to read any of his?
I was a part of that book, and I did about 15 tapes for the book, sent them to the guy, and I don't even know where the guy is with my tapes that I sent him.
Wow.
He kind of when Hawk died, the guy lost his mind, and then the guy's dad passed away too. The guy had a horrible year. I think he got divorced in the same year too, and the guy just kind of fell off the planet because of Austin something, I believe. So, what was the guy's name? Yeah, I don't know what happened to all the tapes. Aaron Lee. So I've been approached by a couple other guys out of New York that want to do a book, and then there's a guy named Bernstein in Minnesota he did an AWA book that approached that I'm going to call and say, hey man, see what you want to do. I just had all that valuable information. I thought of stuff that I thought I'd forgotten about it. I put on tape, and then this guy lost all the tapes and left town with them or something. Yeah, it is horrible.
In the last shoot you did with us, you talked about, I guess, testifying for Martha Hart. Were you ever contacted about that at all? Or?
No, never testified. I never did anything about Hart. I would have.
You got into coaching football for a while, and did you like that?
I loved it. I coached for like 17 years. That was one of the deals I had. A lot of people didn't know that I had with Jim Crockett Promotions and even with Vince McMahon, that I don't mind coming in and working on the Saturdays, but one deal I have to have is I got to be able to fly home on Saturday mornings, coach my kids' games, then go out and fly back out Saturday nights. I may get there late to the show, but I'll get there.
Right.
And then everybody agreed with it.
Let's talk about your partner, Hawk. How did you find out that he had passed away?
Well, ironically, I was the last one to know. Buddy Bob Mueller had called me up and say, "Hey, what's going on?" I said, "Hey, Bob, what's going on?" And he's asking me these questions, and I could feel in his voice that he knows that I don't know yet. And he goes, "Has anybody called you yet today?" I said, "No." "Why?" He goes, "When's the last time you talked to Mike?" I said, "Well, I talked to Mike yesterday when he was moving his furniture. I've not talked to him since." He goes, "Nobody's called you or anything?" I said, "No." He goes, "Joe," and it's about 2:00. He goes, "Mike died." And I said, "You got to be kidding me, man." It totally hit me like a ton of bricks. And that's how I found out. Bob called me and told me.
Wow.
And the whole morning went by, and it was definitely about 1 or 2 o'clock in the afternoon. He called me, and that's how I found out.
Were you and Hawk really close outside the ring? I mean,
we were closer at that point in time in our career than we ever were. We had both grown full circle and knew we were not going to make top dollar without each other. And then, I think he looked at when I introduced him to the guys in Phoenix with the Christian guys, it kind of like was saving his life a little bit because, let's face it, he faced death probably about 10, 12 times. I'm talking Mack trucks falling in 70 feet of water in Leech Lake in northern Minnesota, and, with the down jacket and cowboy boots on, drunk at 3:30 in the morning. And the only guy that's in a boat is half paralyzed buddy Matt, who was, in the Gulf War, the first Gulf War, and he made it through all this stuff. And he finally learned he did not make it through all this stuff by accident for no reason. He made it to share this with young people, young kids at that time, to show them, hey, man, there's something different in life you may want to look at. Road A, Road B.
Right.
We're back to Road A, Road B again, and he just wanted to show them.
How hard was his passing on you?
Well, it ruined my top dollar for making any money in this business, for one. It hurt my family because my kids loved him like he was his real uncle, and he wasn't, He used to call my kids and say, "Hey, how's it going, James, in football and hockey? How's it going in hockey and softball? Hey, Joe, you getting ready to go in the Army?" I mean, he was cool that way. He was great that way. He really cared about kids, and he cared for his own nieces and nephews too. And it made it hard, man, because we grew real close, and doing the Christian events made us even closer because now we had a different purpose.
Right.
You know what I mean? And but I don't think it was just us getting closer. Everybody he dealt with, he got closer at that time. I look back now and I know I know he knew that his heart was messed up bad now.
How do you know that?
Well, now that I look back, because I talked to a couple buddies of his when after he passed, I said, Joe, did you know he was going to a heart specialist on the side? And I said, no, I found this out at his funeral. And a couple guys or two would tell me, I said, really? I said, yeah, I think his heart was damaged so bad he knew. And as soon as he got done lifting the last heavy thing for his wife to move out of the condo to the house, his body just kind of said, oh, all right, I'm done now. I could go now and she'll be cool, you know? Wow. And that's what I think happened. He laid down and never woke up.
What do you attribute the heart problems from?
Well, it was coke. Up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, yo-yo. A yo-yo effect, for sure, 100%. No doubt in my mind. Because I seen him in Australia on a 2-day binge, and I watched his resting pulse rate laying down before a match was 188.
Oh.
Yeah,
right.
So
that's like running around.
Mine sitting in the doctor's office the other day was 70, which is pretty good. You know, I've been doing a lot of aerobics and stuff, but that 70 is great for my age right now. And his was 110 beats more than that, 120 beats more than that. So, I mean, just goes to show you, I could see his chest moving as he was laying there. And when we were in Australia, he called me up and he said, Animal, 3 guys have died with the same exact crap that I got in here. You get me out of here and taking me home. I'm not dying over here. I'm going home if I'm going to die. And I could hear the nurse saying, no, sir, you can't leave. You're too, you know, this and that and this and that. And I said, you really want to go home? He said, yeah. I said, all right. And I could hear him saying, ma'am, I got a 325-pound partner that says I'm leaving. And I came over there in a tank top and a bandana, and I said, where's the papers? I signed them out. I walked them through the Melbourne airport, and I walked them through LAX, shipped them off to Tampa, and Dale picked him up. Good thing her father was a top heart surgeon in the country. Her dad was. And put him on a special medication. He literally had to do nothing but light aerobics for a year. A year. That's a year no money.
Right.
I mean, you're no money for me too.
I was going to say, was there ever a time where you took Hawk on the side and said, look, you know, you're effing up, you know, you got to look out for both of us? Or was he the kind of guy that wouldn't listen to you?
No, at that time, there was so much interference with outside influences, you couldn't tell him that. Not without it being a real fight. You know what I mean? We threw away, or I should say he threw away, $250,000 when we were at WCW. We had the first guaranteed big contracts. We still had $250,000 left on our contract with Jim Hurd. Screw this, I don't like the way they're treating Ellering. We're leaving, Animal. I said, Mike, I got 3 kids. What do you mean we're leaving? And he just gets up and quits because he's on a binge and leaves. I said, well, I guess I got to go. I'm his partner. They don't want me by myself. They want the Road Warriors. You know, so I had to leave too. But he went on to go to Japan. I finished out the dates with WWF at the time.
Right.
And then I guess when I got hurt over in Japan.
Did you guys ever have any blows? You guys ever come to blows ever?
You know, we went at it once in the locker room when we were, I think, in the business for a month.
This is back in Georgia?
Yeah, it was. We never even got any swings, and the locker room broke us up right away.
You think Hawk was misunderstood?
That Hawk was? Yeah. I think the people that got to know the true Mike Hegstrand knew that he was a great guy. He'd give you the shirt off his back, and if you didn't have the shirt off his back, he'd borrow the shirt off his back to give to you.
Right.
The kind of guy he was.
Do you think that death could have been prevented, or?
I think if he beat so many things. He beat Hep C, did the interferon treatments with Hep C, beat it. Less than 10% or 1% chance beats it. He beat it. He was such a physical specimen. I think the cardiomyopathy, I think he damaged it too bad at that point. I think after the Hep C, if he would have cleaned up and stopped what he was doing, I think he would have been fine. But I think once you damage it like you did, I don't think there was a point. I think it came to a point of no return. That especially when I found out that he was seeing heart specialists at home, because he would turn the weirdest color in the ring. He would turn blue red. And I don't know if it was a circulation problem or something, but something was not right. And we could see it. All of us could see it. Of course, he knew, like I said, one speed, 150 miles an hour. If he was drinking, it was 150 miles an hour. If he was doing this, 150 miles an hour. He did not know 75 miles an hour. He knew 150.
Right. Did any of the other boys ever take him on the side and try to talk? Did he
No, the problem was the other boys were antagonistic. Some of the other guys said, "Man, you're the man, Hawk. I can't believe you're doing all this." Knowing that soon enough, his spot on the roster is going to be gone. They'll be able to slide right in. That part, I was telling him. They don't care about you, Mike. I care about you. I'm your friend. I'm making money with you. I'm your partner. They don't care about you. I tried to tell him that, but then he said, no, they wouldn't do that to me. I think, Jake was one. I know Jake was one because Mike told me Jake was one.
Wow.
I wanted to kill Jake at one time because he was feeding Mike full of crap. Well, Animal's bad guy. He's bad-mouthing Vince. He's bad-mouthing Heidenreich. I would never was doing any of that. He knew that afterwards. I would never do that to him. Right. I had a problem with Mike. I'd have went right to his face and listen, Mike.
Are you still close with his family at all, or?
No, everybody kind of split their own ways. There was a big bad thing at the end there. His younger brother took part of Mike's ashes, and Mike's wife was going to give them ashes anyway, and it just got to be a big mess.
Huh. Were there ever plans for you to ever return to WWE?
There were plans at one time. I had heard right after Mike's first suspension that they wanted to do something with me. The time he didn't come back from England, they wanted to do something pretty similar to what they did with Rock. And because Vince had asked me, and I said, "Nah, man, I want to stay with the team with my partner. I can't do that to him. I wouldn't do it."
Right.
At the last time I was with WWE, it was when I did the deal with Heidenreich. And, I did that. I got called in. My brother says, "Hey, we got good news and bad news. The good news is we're going to get you a contract. Bad news is you got a guy that was almost like Hawk was on the road, Heidenreich." I said, "No, ain't nobody was ever that bad." And, well, I wasn't far off. Right. But, I never really, and the problem is I really can't say anything about Heidenreich because I didn't know Heidenreich that well. I really didn't get to know him. He was a great guy. At one time, I needed to borrow some money for something. He lent it to me. I paid him right back. He was a good guy in that sense. He had a big heart like Hawk did. A lot of the qualities were like Hawk. The only thing I got a little bit irritated with, he didn't respect the gimmick. The gimmick was 22 years built on being a top-notch stud, and he just didn't respect the gimmick.
Whose idea was it to pair you with Heidenreich? Oh,
Stephanie's. Yeah. And, and I wanted to make it work, so I like Stephanie. I really like Stephanie, and I respect her. Hopefully someday, and I know she'll probably be the one that takes over the company someday, I think. Hopefully I can get a chance to work with her, because I get along good with Stephanie, and I can work with Stephanie, and I get along good with Triple H and stuff like that, so I have no problem with those guys.
What were your initial thoughts of the team? Did Heidenreich listen to you at all?
Yeah, he was great. He listened and everything else. I just think it was a bunch of different factors came into it. A fact of him not being ready for that kind of a shot and not really knowing the instincts on what to do in a match at particular times, like Hawk and I did. Hawk and I knew everything together. I could tell after he's done a spot, he would look over to me. If he would have knocked his head or something, I would quick tell him the next part of the spot. I always knew his spots.
Right.
And I knew the whole match. That's why I get pissed off at some of these guys that are helping run the company right now that have never sold out a match. Are you kidding me? Against the top guys in our business, Ric Flairs and Dusty Rhodeses and Nikita Koloff's, Magnum TAs and Arn Anderson's and Tully Blanchard's, Bobby Eaton, Dennis Condrey, Stan Hansen's. I've learned to shut up and listen to Larry Zubisco's, to all these top guys. And I've learned to know every bit of my part, my partner's part, and their part of the match. So I know wrestling. I know how to heel. I know how to babyface. Just because I haven't thrown 15 arm drags doesn't mean I don't know how to do them. Right. It's a big argument I had with my brother one time. Well, if you can't get heat in this business, how are you going to teach somebody to get it? I said, what are you talking about? My deal here with Matt Hardy? I said, are you kidding me? Give me some steam. Right. Don't give me 10 seconds. Give me some steam and I'll get heat. But at the end, what Hyde right there, just nothing. I love Matt Hardy to it, but it just took the steam out of me. It took the heart of the business out of me. I didn't have it to go on as a single after that. I would have just much rather go behind the scenes, be a top agent, and help build guys.
Did it ever bother you to see like Heidenreich in the colors with the spikes and all that, or? I mean,
I think it bothered other people more than it bothered me.
right.
You know, this is a work. This business is what it is. It just proved that you just can't throw anybody in that spot.
Were you surprised that they gave you the tag belts?
No, but Denny and Vince is like shocked. And out of all the other teams that were there, you know, Eminem was a great little tag team.
What was it like working with Joey?
Great. Joey was great. Johnny was great. They were good. You know, I taught them. A lot of people don't realize I taught those guys. From we first worked with them to the end, they grew a lot in the ring.
Definitely.
Because they were able to work with other guys after that.
Right.
You know, and it proved that whoever they worked with the next little angle with afterwards, you know, the Mexicools or whatever, they were able to step right in there and be the top tag team. They weren't the top tag team when we got with them. They were still green as heck. I took them over an 8-month period. If that wasn't proof enough, I don't know what could have been to the office. Joey even came up and said, man, I got to thank you. You taught us so much in the ring on how to be heels, when to turn up that extra gear, when to get the heat, when to do this, when to do the big move, when to not to do the move, you know, when to go home. And that's what I taught them.
Getting back to Heidenreich, I remember maybe about a year ago, he did a couple of interviews. He talked about you lending him like $5,000 or something, or he lent you $5,000. And so apparently he claims that he had to go to your brother to get the money back. What was the whole story with that?
It was a deal. I had some financial thing. I got in a bind and I had to pay something, and he had it hanging around. If I'd have had it, I'd have given right to him. And he lent it to me, and wasn't 3 weeks later I paid him back.
Right.
4 weeks later I paid him back. Maybe a month. You know, it was no big deal. He didn't have to go to my brother. Heidenreich says, just give it back to me when you can. I said, all right, bro, if you need it right away, let me know. And he never said anything. Until he went crying to like a baby. I said, bro, what'd you go crying to him for? Just come to me, and I said, give it right to your check.
Right.
Give it to you. It was like I didn't have it. Yeah, like I had plenty of it in my retirement fund. I just didn't want to wait a month. Pay the 10% deal on it and get it out, you know. So that was all, you know, one of the immaturity things in a Gimmick where he should have felt good enough as my partner to come up to me and say, hey, man, let's just, you know, I need that myself.
Did you guys burn the hatchet, or is there still heat there? Or?
There's no heat there. He tried doing something on YouTube one time. And
What are your thoughts on that?
well, he tried to say it wasn't him. I mean, he apologizes for it now. Says he's reborn again now and refound God again. And I hope for him and his family he has.
Right.
Because he was a very spiritual guy. That's one of the things I liked about him, you know. But, you know, you can't be halfway spiritual. You can't be spiritual and then have your ears bleeding from doing too much things you shouldn't do, because that's part of your sinuses. And then I've been, you know, having the state trooper say you can't sleep in this rest area here and send you to the hospital. Then me having to drive 150 miles to pick you back up the next day. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You got to make the decision to be, you know, and he didn't make that. And, you know, where I got hot at him is that when he started talking about my kid, there's where I draw the line. I knew a lot of things about his wife. I've seen a lot of things. I heard a lot of things from other guys. I never said a word. I could have ripped on his wife, ripped on his kids. I didn't say anything. He said something about my son, accusing him of doing certain things on that YouTube deal. I drew the line and said, hey, listen, you got a problem with me, you come to me.
Right.
You know what I mean?
How did you contact? Did you call him, or did you?
No, I YouTubed him right back on the things. Listen here, you know, not so many nice words.
Right.
You know, but I let him know. I said, listen, you got a problem with me, you come to me. Leave my family out of this.
Right.
Big, tough man attacking people. So you attacking Hawk, he's dead. He'd have knocked you out right away.
Without a doubt.
Without even thinking twice, you know? So, I mean, you know, I told him, I said, listen, I ended it by saying, listen, I wish John Heidenreich all the best. You know, I ended it as the better man, you know, the upper man. I said, hey, I hope he's doing great. I hope he's doing good for he and his family. I told him, I even texted him one time, said, listen, man, if you want to use the Gimmick to make money as the other half of the Legion of Doom over in Europe, go ahead. I don't care.
Right.
If it helps you out where you can make money for your family, go ahead. But I found out he sold the pads to some guy in Germany or something.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter.
Before you started teaming up with him again, they brought you in as an announcer, I believe. How did that go?
Well, I thought it would have went well. They never gave it a shot. That's the problem.
Right.
See, and here's the funny thing with the announcer part. They get mad at me because I didn't know some of their guys. Well, hello. Do you think I sit home and I just watch wrestling?
Right.
I'm a coach, man. I was coaching semi-pro football teams. Guys that may have further than any guys who were on our roster in the WWE. You know, and my brother got mad at me because I didn't know some of the guys. Well, so what? I sat there with Jim Ross. I said, what does this guy do? What's his favorite move? What's his thing? I said, I wrote that on a piece of paper. I did my homework. You know, I said, it's not like you sent me home and said, here, look over some of these tapes and find out what some of these guys do. They got mad at me seriously because I didn't sit around and watch Raw. I said, you got to be kidding me, right? Because everything out there is ad-libbing. It's feeding off JR or feeding off, you know, the King anyway. I mean, what the heck? Huh. I thought it would have been I think I could be a great announcer with JBL right now. I think he and I would be a great team out there behind the mic.
We're talking about the WWE DVD that came out with the Road Warriors. How did that come about? Did you like it?
I think it's probably, if not one of the best DVDs they have right now still on from anybody's. I've never seen Undertaker's or anybody else, but I don't see how anybody could have got more personal than we did on the DVD. And the only thing that I'm actually going to question for real on the DVD is that I've seen some of the checks that some of these other guys, that Neidhart and some of these other guys have gotten on merchandise and their DVDs, but mine haven't been nowhere near that. And I'm saying it right now in the shoot video. I am going to check into it. Right. Because I heard that DVD did the best of all sales of DVDs for the WWE. Somewhere like 13, 17 million bucks worth of DVDs. Huh. Well, I didn't see my $1 million check off that baby.
Do you think Hawk would have liked the DVD?
I think he would have been proud the way the DVD came out. I think the DVD would have been 50% much better if he had been alive to do it, you know, because he's just creative.
Right.
I mean, he was the creative part. I was the hard sell guy. Huh. I was the sell guy, straight up narrow. He was the it seems to be that when a monkey climbs a tree, you know, he do the real crazy stuff.
Was there anything that you said on that DVD that might have got cut out? Do you remember watching it and be like, you know, I said this and they didn't put it on the DVD? Or...
You know, I think there were some things I said that they didn't explain full or carry through all the way.
Right.
You know?
How do you respond to critics that say that if your brother wasn't in charge in WWE, you wouldn't have had a job?
Well, all they got to do is look at my gimmick and speech for itself. If anybody's got that freaking question, just look. I mean, ask the Jax guy. If anything, they brought me back because their action figures weren't selling worth a damn. I mean, when I was there last time, even with Heidenreich, my action figure by itself, above Bret Hart, above even Undertaker, who sells a whole bunch of stuff, was number 2 in sales. Hawks was number 3. Wow. Our tag team was number 1. That tells you, when my action figure came out with Heidenreich, that run sold out. We got action figures out now that just came out of the old action figures ones where I got the yellow D bat thing on my knees and they were the black pads with the red underneath. I heard that run is already almost sold out. I had about 50 people in London about a month ago had them. And I did them. And I actually got the knee pads in the bag over here for it. You know, so, I mean, they could say that and they could say my brother wasn't the boss. If my brother being the boss, it helped me out worth a damn. Let me tell you that right now.
Right.
They didn't give me special preferential treatment. Didn't give me any one-uppers or give me any bonus in money or help me out in any way, believe me.
What's your other brother doing these days? Because I know...
Well, I go to Mark runs my roadwarriorsinc.com site. Mark runs that. That's his name at the bottom, the Marcus Images. He does websites and design and all that stuff.
He was a Terminator, right? Back in Florida?
Yeah, he was Terminator. They were WCW champs.
Right.
And, you know, so, I mean, he's great at website designs. I mean, the guy's a real good artist. He's always been a great artist since he was young.
Going back to the Crockett days, I'm going to jump back and forth. Does it bother you when guys from the Crockett territory constantly complain about the amount of money Paul Ellering got? Because I know he was your real life manager as well, besides manager at ringside. And does it ever bother you hearing guys complain about that?
Well, the guys have got to understand. And there were a lot of guys that were getting marketing money from Crockett, like the Midnight Express, like Flair, probably Tully and Arn. We got zero. Zero money for T-shirts. We were selling them out all over the place. We got zero money for pictures, 8x10, zero money for posters, zero money on the Kangaroos deal, zero money on everything. It was all part of our deal. We gave all. We said, Jimmy, you keep it all. So how could they complain about Paul's contract? Really, all our extras went into that. We said, don't pay us. Give Paul what he needs to have to survive. If they didn't like it, all they had to do was work a little harder and make more money.
Right.
Paul worked his butt off. He was our shooting manager. For 15 years, he was our manager. I mean, he booked all our plane tickets, booked all our matches. Whether we were working for Crockett or Vern, or we were working up Montreal for Dino and Rick Martel, or who we were working for, Paul took care of everything.
You still talk to Paul to this day? Or?
You know, I don't talk to him as much as I should. My kids have gone up there. He runs a restaurant up on Big Birch Lake called the Rock Tavern.
Where's that out of? What state?
It's in Minnesota. It's about 150 miles north of me. It's on Big Birch Lake. You can get there by boat or you get there by car driving across the lake in the winter.
Right.
And he cooks himself, you know. You
Was
know,
he always into that back in the day?
Oh,
too,
God, yeah. Paul, he's your real life Yul Gibbons. Yeah.
How was Paul affected by Hawk's passing? Did you ever have a chance to talk to him about that?
You know, people got to understand, we were like a family. I mean, Hawk and I and Paul were like brothers. Paul was, Paul was like the 5 or 6 year old older brother. You know what I mean? And probably next in line was me. But I was younger than Hawk.
Right.
I'm 4 years younger than Hawk. So it's, you know, but Mike was the off the wall big brother.
Right.
I mean, you know, so I mean, it worked out. It just worked out good. We all had a common respect for each other. We all knew how far we could push each other's buttons. We all knew what times we needed breaks from each other. And we all knew that we all weren't worth a damn without each other too. And we protected that more than anything. Because we grew up in the era of the business, you got to watch out for this guy because he's going to stab you if he gets a chance.
Right.
And people took that as a mistake, as being maybe cocky, or, oh, the Road Warriors are hard to work with. No. We grew up in the era of the business that if you didn't watch and protect it yourself, I mean, the guys were I mean, that was in the beginning when you started filming guys, you know. But guys like Bob, who used to take pictures of guys back then, knew that. You know, he was around seeing that evolution of the business where it changed from that to everybody's making big money, nobody gave a damn. You know, but at that time, nobody had. There was like 2 guys had contracts.
Right. Now, getting back to WWE run with Heidenreich, was it hard being on the road once again full time?
Yeah, I didn't like to be back on the road all the time the way it was, you know. Especially when the match was like pulling teeth.
Right.
You know, you never knew which John Heidenreich was going to show sometimes. You know?
Right.
You go there with the best intentions of work, and then he'd show up late, and then you got the agents who were there ripping me a new butthole like it's my fault.
Who are some of the agents?
Well, I mean, you know, you had Fit and Steamboat and,
right.
You know, and Malenko.
Right.
You know, and T2 Conley and Malenko yelling at me for something. There's one of the guys that never drew a dime in this business telling me what to do.
A lot of people say that about Dean, that he didn't respect a lot of the vets. And
no, he didn't respect a lot of the vets. But that's because I think he had a lot of the little man syndrome and got pissed off a lot because there's a little guy that didn't make the big money.
Right.
And this is his way to get back at everybody. That's just the way Dean comes off, though. Dean comes off like a cocky, arrogant little bastard. That's just the way he comes off.
A lot of people have said that on an interview, so. Were you
I'm not the first one. I won't be the last.
Were you respected by a lot of the younger guys in the locker room?
Yeah. I never had a problem with respect in the locker room. Because I helped out a lot of guys before the matches.
Right.
I didn't have to, but a lot of the new guys coming in, you know, like the big guy from India, what's his name? Kali. I helped him the first day he came in there, throw chops and throw kicks. Try to teach him to be more vicious, you know. And a lot of the other guys, Bobby Lashley, tried to teach him how to throw a flying tackle. You know, different guys like that. And try to, you know, guys are trying to throw power slams. I watched a guy throw it the other day. What's that skinny kid that threw a power slam the other day? Punk.
Right.
Threw a power slam, look horrible. Why? You mean to tell me you don't have enough moves in your repertoire that you got to do a power slam? Usually a power slam is done by one guy because it's only 1 or 2 guys can do it. It hasn't changed much in 20 years. Still, only 1 or 2 guys can do it. Guys got to be able to have good hips, loose hips, throw those hips and get up high and be able to get some ups to him when he's doing it, and then protect the guy as you're going around. The way some of these guys just do it and just hold on and swing the guy, and they come like this far from guy's head hitting the canvas, man.
I've seen that too, yeah.
That happened the other night.
Yeah, I was watching it. How did the locker room change as far as like with all the young guys in the locker room compared to when you were there a couple of years ago?
The locker room's the locker room. The guys are going to respect the locker room because the day they do not respect the older guy in the locker room or the guy that paved the way for them is the day they need to get the butt kicked. Seriously. And a lot of times they can count on the older guy being the guy to kick their ass. Seriously. I mean,
right. No.
a lot of these guys have got into wrestling because they watch guys on TV and say, oh, geez, I can do that, and never did anything badass in their life. Our generation of wrestlers came from school of hard knocks, a lot of guys. A lot of guys like Steve Williams that didn't get to make it in pro football or somewhere else. It was a 4-time All-American somewhere else, or Mike Rotunda that was an All-American, or, right. There's a lot of tough guys. The Steiners are 2 tough guys in our business. The guys will kid around with and stuff, on top of your Ken Shamrocks and your, Steve Blackmans and other guys like that too. You know what I mean? They're some tough guys.
Who would you say was the most legitimate tough guy you've been in the ring with?
Well, Haku.
Everybody says Haku.
Haku, without a doubt. You can just feel his strength.
Huh.
But then I've been there with Haku when he's been hammered, and I've seen his strength there too. Yeah.
You seen him bite the guy's ear off?
No, I didn't see him bite the guy's ear off, but I seen him take a guy's eye out.
Right.
Just scoop it and hold it.
Oh nice. Mm-hmm. What are some of your memories of working with Eddie Guerrero and Batista?
We never got to work with Eddie Guerrero or Batista. To be honest with you.
Okay.
We never got to wrestle him.
I thought you will edit.
Did we wrestle him?
I thought you did one thing with him.
I don't think so.
No.
I think we were getting ready to, and they yanked it.
That's
the thing with
Maybe
Heidenreich.
that's what it was. Okay.
Yeah.
Was it hard adjusting to a more scripted wrestling, like promos and the planned spots, compared to when you call everything?
I hate scripted wrestling because I think it kills your ability to learn. What are you going to do if somebody breaks a leg or something? You got to ad-lib it.
Right.
You got to have your start, your middle, and your finish. You have your start, your body, then your ending. Everything else should be ad-libbed. I never went out there knowing what I was going to do when I wrestled the Four Horsemen. And they were some of the best matches of all time. Some of those 6-mans we had in cages with those guys were unbelievable. Some of the matches we had with the Freebirds were unbelievable. And we weren't all 6 good workers with the Freebirds either. They couldn't work and we couldn't work. But they came off great.
All right.
Because they were great heels. The Samoan SWAT team, the Wild Samoans, some of our best matches with those guys. Every one of those matches, we listened to the heel. And that art is gone in the business because everybody wants to be the hero. Everybody wants to be the top dog. The art of God. Why do you think? That's why I get so pissed that I wasn't there to acknowledge Flair the other day. He taught me so much. And I listened to Flair and Arn Anderson and Tully Blanchard teach me. And Ole Anderson teach me the business. And that's part of the business that's gone. And it pisses me off because I should be in that office handing it down to my craft. And because of egos and other bullshit, I'm not there handing my craft down to people that I should be. I spent 20 years in this business in the ring with top guys. Not a lot of people could say that. I got a gimmick that's going 25 years strong. And if you ask people, they think I was in the ring yesterday. They can't tell because that's how strong the gimmick was. And was so, I hate to say it wasn't so much more popular than other gimmicks, but
it was so over.
I was blessed with a gimmick.
Right.
If it was somebody else, I'd pat them on the back and think, congratulations, God bless you, But in our business, a lot of animosity and jealousy, and sometimes, it happens that way. But, it's just one of those things in our business. And I don't understand why whatever company doesn't take advantage of that. If you go on tour overseas, like for instance, I know TNA has been over in Europe and wants to go back over. Let me be the guy that goes over there and do personal appearances for TNA and do the pre-sales for you, like WWF used to do.
Right.
They'd send a guy over 3 months ahead of time and do pre-sales and
right.
sell out everybody that sponsored you. You have their venue sell out because they would make a mini event of the event.
Right.
And I don't know why somebody's not doing that, man. Because today's age, with WWE 24/7 playing, and it's all the AWA, ECW, WCW, WWF, WWE, NWA stuff. Well, who do you think is main event? Most of it.
Right.
Hawk and I, at some time or another, let's use it. It's playing all the time. Use it.
I'm going to ask you later on in the interview what you think about today's wrestling and what needs to be changed, because I'm sure you'd go off on that forever. How did you wind up with Christy Hemme, and what are your thoughts on her?
I don't know who threw Christy Hemme in with us, and I didn't mind because she was a good piece of eye candy.
Right.
I mean, I felt bad for Christy because she was all excited to be with us. I think she knew where it had the potential to go because she was familiar with the Road Warrior, Mystique, and everything else, and she knew if it got really big, she'd be making some money and stuff. But all of a sudden, one day we're up at the gorilla position, and Vince says, "Get the hell away from those guys. You do not, the Road Warriors do not need a girl." And so we just sit there, looked at each other, and Chrissy went off crying, So I felt kind of bad for her,
Right.
In a way, Vince is right. I mean, Sonny never really lasted long with us. And that was, the poor girl was at a different point in her life at that time. She's changed a lot now. Has got herself back in the game, but.
Did you guys ever become frustrated, or did you ever become frustrated, or were you in it just for the last ride as far as the booking goes? I mean, did you still have a passion for the business?
Oh, yeah. I mean, if you don't have a passion for this business, you shouldn't be in it.
Right.
Even if you're booking. If you don't have a passion for the business, that's where I get kind of irritated because I know a lot in this business. Even when some of the guys say, "Hey, I'm in the room fighting for you all the time," I know they're lying to me and pulling my leg because they ain't going to say anything because they ain't going to lose their spot.
All right.
And the worst thing they want to get me in there, I think there's probably a little bit of fear of getting me in there because I do have quite a bit of knowledge in this business. And somebody is going to get jealous and pissed off at it because somebody's job is going to have to go.
Memories of your matches with Steven Regal and Burchill?
Not fond memories.
Oh, why is that?
Well,
Just
I feel
Burchill's-
sorry because poor Paul Burchill's in a spot that he wasn't ready to be in.
Right.
He didn't know how to wrestle. He wasn't big enough to be in the ring. I mean, when you put him in the ring with us, he was just so tiny. Steven was a great wrestler, and of course, all Steven was a battering ram.
Right.
I mean, seriously, I mean, I love Steven's a great guy. Steven's a good friend. I mean,
What about working with the Mexicals, Hoovy and Super Crazy and Psychosis?
they shouldn't even, I shouldn't say this. Not that they shouldn't be in the ring with me, but they're kind of like they're a ha-ha thing. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, Total Kaga.
They're a total ha-ha. Mexican wrestling is so much different than road. I'm getting ready to go. I tag with Kensky now, and I do some Hellraiser stuff.
Right.
It's not Hellraiser. It's called Hell Warriors. He made a special pair of red pads for me. He made me all new tight stuff. I got to go over in May to Mexico City and wrestle in the Ultimate Dragon somebody. But they do it the proper way. Kensky's trying to establish his relationship with Mexico. He's using me to help establish his relationship because I'm giving him a great price to go over there. I'm going there as a favor to Kensky.
Right.
We had a match in Japan. It was last July, Kensky and I, and we sold out the TV arena where Noah does TV.
Right.
50,000 ribbons, the whole works. Kensky and I beat a couple guys in 5 minutes. It's the people want to see it. The people respect it because Hawk helped make Kensky. As a tribute to Hawk, I'm honoring that by tagging with Kensky. And at every match, we do the deal. And it's just an easy bond. The people love it. I wish I was younger because we'd go on for 30 years with it. Kensky and I could.
Right.
Probably can go on for another 10, 15 if I wanted to do it. So I'll do it here for a few years and see where it takes us.
How did you find out about Eddie Guerrero's death?
I was looking at my TV. Wrestler found dead this morning in Minneapolis. Right in my hometown. Man. I was sitting right there. And I said, you got to be kidding me. Eddie Guerrero and Brian Pillman died in my town. Both of them.
Were you surprised when he passed away?
Yeah, I didn't know he had a heart problem.
All right.
And if you did, why didn't you take care of it? If you knew. I think Brian Pillman knew too. I think Brian Pillman, doing all the operations he had on his ankle, knew, because he had to do heart tests. You got to have a good heart to have the operation. I think they found something wrong with his heart. That's why Brian went out and would go to the crack houses and just take off and go. And they found him with the clicker in his hand like this in the Bloomington Hotel by the airport.
All right. What are your feelings on all the guys that came up in wrestling passing away, like even Kurt Hennig and stuff like that? Do you think it's just the nature of the business that causes guys to abuse the drugs? And
I don't think anything's the nature of the business, man. I think
it's personal.
Yeah, I'm wondering where all these guys' parents were. Seriously, growing up, did they not teach any of these guys values and morals? I don't understand. They all had families. Hennig had a family. What are you doing? Yeah, I have no empathy, and a lot of these guys are my friends, but I have no empathy when you know that your family or other people are relying on you for their welfare and their families. It becomes a very selfish business. It has to be the nature of the business some way, because the guys, they want to escape something, and they're trying to escape something. I don't know if it's the 300 days a year. I don't know if it's the hurt and the pain. I don't know what it is, but they want to escape something. That much is evident, because they're doing it for a reason.
Right.
And I don't think it's because you're a wrestler and you have the ability. I don't think that has anything to do with it. I just think, things that have followed you from high school on through or just continuing on now.
We'll talk more about probably drugs later up in the interview. I want to ask you about the Royal Rumble that you were involved in. Was it embarrassing for you personally to be eliminated so quickly in it, or
no?
You think it was just
bro? I don't care. I don't care.
All right.
I mean, look at all the stuff we've been through, especially in the WWF, WWE era, that normal teams would have killed.
Right.
We've been hog-slopped. We've been DX'd. We've been everything, but the true fan knows the way it should be.
I was going to ask you, do you think the last run tarnished the legacy of the Road Warriors?
No, man. No, and that's evident because I get just as good or top dollar now for everything I do. Probably because I stayed away for a couple years and didn't do anything. And then people know they don't have to pay two of us now, just one of us.
Right.
And things like that. So I'm very picky and choosy about what I do.
Now, you talked a little bit earlier on about teaming up with Matt Hardy. What are your memories of teaming up with Matt?
Well, Matt's a good guy. Hardy brothers, great team, man. They did some incredible stuff.
Right.
Stupid things. I mean, I really don't think you need to do some of this stuff to be, to get over. I don't believe you have to put your body sometimes at such risk to make a buck. It better be worth it, the things you do. I mean, you better get paid a good bonus for doing what you're doing, some of these guys.
Were you close to Paul Heyman at all in WWE?
No.
Did you get along with Paul or no?
Yes and no. When Paul got to be boss, talk about a guy really letting the business go to his head. And that's what I think would happen to Paul. I, again, wasn't a guy that went out doing things with Paul like Hawk was. Hawk would go to this bar, go to this club, do this with Paul, do this with Paul, do this with Paul. I wasn't the guy. Some of the guys looked down upon that like I was trying to stun them. It's not what I was trying to stun them. I had 3 kids. I couldn't take the risk of Road Warrior Animal getting suspended or in trouble for this. I wouldn't put my family through that. So if I sacrificed 1 or 2 of the boys whose opinion of me the damn to me anyway, thinking something, who cares? Paul got mad at us one time. They had a TV show, ECW in Philadelphia, and he wanted Hawk and I to come in town and do it. I said, Paul, we can't do it. I'm leaving for Japan that morning. We really need you to come in to do this TV. I said, Paul, I'm not going to miss Japan.
Right.
At the time, we're making $20,000 a week for your TV. Sorry. For a $500 shot. No. No. And he got all mad at us because, he tried to plan and all this. He went ahead and planned this whole thing without even asking us. So I don't know. I don't know what. I know he's probably still getting a certain percentage from Vince anyway off DCW stuff, which I'm sure he is. He's making plenty of money. You know, probably the wrong guy to have money in his hands, but.
What are your thoughts on all the other writers when you were there? Did you get along with them, or?
Yeah, but they're all chicken shit. Oops. They're all chickens. They're all chickens. They're all yes men. Everybody that works here is a yes man. Yes man. Yes man. Should be yes master. Yes master. Because that's the way they all are. All the guys that are writers, they might be great writers. Some of them are probably, I heard soap opera writers and stuff, but they don't know wrestling.
Exactly. I was going to ask you.
They don't know the legacy of the Road Warriors. They don't know the legacy of Hulk Hogan. They don't know the legacy of Paul Orndorff or the Nasty Boys, the Steiners. Nobody. They don't know anyway. Bret Hart. Nobody. Only what they see on tape.
Don't you feel it should go back to the olden days where guys were in the business?
This business has been hell-bent on guys that did the business, that was on top, that made it on top, was the guys running the company. And that's what it needs to get back to. Hopefully they started getting back that way. I heard Barry Windham's back there and stuff now. And I hope they just change it all back and getting everybody back there. Writers, bookers, everywhere.
Right.
They were smart. They'd be letting Dusty do most of the writing.
He's going to be going down, I think, to Florida doing that territory now.
He's a genius.
All right, yeah.
Genius, man. Dusty's a genius. But still, why are the... I mean, I know their intentions on having a territory down there and having it, but the guys are not going to get to work with top guys. They're going to be young guys in the camp, being told what to do, going around doing shows.
It pays for veterans to come in and work with them and pretty much give them, you know...
Yeah, but who's going to come in?
Right, exactly.
What veterans are left to teach?
Right.
Nobody. Hardly.
If you were in charge, let's talk about the problems of the business. What would you do to fix things up?
First of all, I'd tell the guys to hit each other and quit acting like babies. Everybody's afraid to hit each other. Lay the crap in. One thing. Don't throw a punch if it looks horrible. Just because you think you could throw one, just because you think you could throw one doesn't mean you know how to throw one. I mean, that's part of the business that's missing big time. And the guys just, I don't know if it's a respect for the business or a dire need to love the business, but something's missing in the business. I don't know if they're in it because they want to say they're a wrestler.
That's what I think. A lot of it today, as far as on the indie scene, a lot of the kids are just kids. And they go ahead and buy the tights, and they think they're a wrestler, and it's all spots.
Just because you have a title of an independent contractor on your name and you say wrestler on your ID doesn't make you a wrestler. You know? And I think the problem is all these indie promoters just go like this to guys. Give me your money.
Right, exactly.
All right, you're a wrestler now. You know, we used to laugh at guys down in Alabama, the Mike Jacksons, teaching guys how to wrestle. Well, we're going to teach you how to wrestle today. You got to wrestle the Road Warriors on TBS. Well, what are you going to learn coming on TBS with us? I said, you're getting an ass kicking.
Right.
Because that's what the business called for. If Ole Anderson, and taking Hawk and I, because we are naive and young and stupid, we knew no better. But if Ole Anderson did take that stand on the business and say, listen, you guys are going to get beat up by these guys. That's just the way it's going to be. Where do you think the business will be today as far as teams go? Nowhere. It'd be lower than it is now. But Ole took that chance on a couple of punk kids that just had attitudes and charisma. Another thing you can't teach. Charisma is a big facet that's missing in the business. Just because a guy looks like $1 million isn't going to make him a star. Love Bobby Lashley to death. Where's his personality?
Exactly, yeah.
You couldn't draw out of Bobby. You can kill his family right in front of him. You couldn't get it from him.
Right.
Seriously. Booker T, it was automatically there. Hunter, it's automatically there. JBL, it's automatically there. You can't teach charisma. You are either born with charisma or you're not. And they need to weed the guys out that don't have charisma. Randy Orton, phenomenal charisma. He's got the total package. Problem is he was just so arrogant when he first came in that he's got that reputation. Everybody thinks he's a dick, but he's not a dick. He's a great guy. He can wrestle his butt off, too. The company should be glad they got him because he's great. He's going to be one of the great ones of all time.
Why do you think WWE is really taking away focus from the tag team division? Because there's no tag teams out there?
They never liked the tag teams. They had them for a while when they had
Nasty Boys, you guys?
No, it was before that even. They had the Wild Samoans. Then they had Chief J Strongbow and somebody, two Indian guys. And they had, Bob, you probably know more of that. They probably had all these New York tag teams.
Gray Martel.
Right. Yeah, I mean, they had all these tag teams. Then they went away. Then they came back with us. The Hart Foundation was there. Demolition was there first.
Right. Then
we came in. Demolition went away. I mean, Vince didn't even take any chance to let's work with this, do anything. Let's just kill him. I got rid of my fake Road Warriors. Now I got my Road Warriors in there. I don't need these poor guys. And that's pretty much what happened. And they were gone. We did a test match working the Coliseum Video against the Hart Foundation, the babyface tag teams.
I remember that.
Vince wanted to see, we're going to see how your reaction is against these guys, see if anybody knows you up north. Well,
yeah,
got another standing ovation. Found out what was going to happen real quick.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing with, who else was there at the time? I'm trying to think, but...
Rougeau's there? Or?
No, well, yeah, the Rougeaus were there. But the Nasties were the champs. We had chased them all around and finally met them in Madison Square Garden. I forget what was the event, a Survivor Series or something, but it was something like that, a big night. And we beat them in the Garden, man. One of the most phenomenal scenes still in my history of wrestling for me was winning the titles in Madison Square Garden. The people went freaking crazy. Because in the stands were guys like Lou Ferrigno sitting there. Came to New York to watch this thing. Well, Lou's from New York anyway.
Right.
But guys like that were all the American Gladiators were there, and a lot of those kind of guys would show up to New York City and watch the shows. We always had actors in the crowd. And to be actors and win in front of some of those athletes and actors and Broadway actors and everything was one of the highlights of my career. But that part of it's missing, man, is the charisma and the business, and not just learning your craft, but the charisma. You got to find the guys, and there's enough guys out there in the world that have the charisma. You got to go looking at the cocky SOB that's bouncing to the bar, cutting promos at people, kicking them out of bars.
All right.
Because that's what we were. That's the guy you want to say, come here, you got any athletic ability at all? Let's go.
Right.
Let's take you over, teach you the business, see if you can put two and two together and walk and chew gum, and let's go and make,
Plus, a lot of guys today are just pretty much going in there doing spots, and nobody knows how to.
Well, that's just it, man. I mean, I wouldn't mind sacrificing and making another. You'll never be able to duplicate the Road Warriors, but I can be Warriror Animal with another tag team and give it my blessing and take them. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely.
It's up to the company now.
Why were you released?
I don't know. Probably because the front office got off and had my brother fire me.
Right.
I mean, to be honest with you.
Did you leave on good terms, at least? Or?
Yeah. I mean, you leave a company as well as you can.
Right.
I mean, everything's done for a reason. Everything's done for a little spiteful dig. And I believe it was done for a little dig. Let's have John fire his brother.
How did that come about?
Well, Heidenreich got fired, and I knew it was only a matter of time.
Right.
They
pretty much said they didn't have anything for you? Or?
Well, yeah, they're out.
Right.
We can't do anything. I said, well, why don't you have a contest and let somebody win the spot of being one of the Road Warriors? What it leads you to do. Like Bob Holly would have been a perfect guy to do it. Maybe Bob Holly had a hard time expressing his personality being Bob Holly. Put paint on his face, do something. You never know. I have a hard time doing interviews without the paint. I've gotten over the fact now because I've done a lot of speaking engagements over the last few years, but I couldn't, normally before people knew me, I couldn't talk without paint, especially in the ring. But now I can do it, But
if there's somebody that you wanted to handpick, who would it be? If there's one guy out there right now in the business that you would, it didn't matter, he was under contract or not, who would you want to bring in and team up with?
Who had a good look, and they didn't do anything with him, and I think if they really would have done something to him, he would have been a decent worker, was Tomko.
Yeah.
Nice big guy, I think had a good look to him that you probably could have painted and done something with. I mean, I'm talking about a guy that's sitting there doing nothing.
Right.
I'm not talking about somebody like the Batista or anything like that, because, that's your money guy in your money position right there, but Tomko's a guy that I think would have been real good to do it, that you would have had something,
How was the party scene during the time period right before you left? Was it
It was
Little
non-existent.
right.
Non-existent. I think, the press made a bigger deal about partying and drugs because of the situation in society.
Right.
It wasn't a big deal in the locker room. Nobody came to the shows messed up.
What are your thoughts on the whole Benoit tragedy? Because you got to work with Chris right before you left.
I got to work with Chris. I knew Chris. The WrestleMania before, his son sat on my lap. We watched his daddy wrestle. I'm glad to hear that they took all the heat off of steroids. Steroids not even mentioned now because it had nothing to do with what Chris did. That was proven by medical doctors. I was glad of the fact that his dad had the autopsy done and his brain was as messed up as it was. They said his brain looked like chocolate pudding, but gray, all messed up, almost like liquid. It was so, his bled so much with scar tissue and everything that it was all messed up. He had the brain of an 80-year-old man, they said. Somebody that gives an autopsy in an old folks home or something, And that part I was glad to hear because in a tragic situation like that, there's no excuse for anybody killing their wife and especially their kid, as well as himself. You try to find the best of a horrible situation. At least I did. And the only upside to it is they found out that he wasn't Chris when it happened. Something snapped,
Right.
And you got a lot of bandwagon guys now, like Dynamite Kid and everything else, saying, I knew he was going to be nuts. I'm like, come on. How'd you know that when he was 16 years old? You didn't know that. Dynamite was one of the biggest assholes in this business for a while.
Right.
You
spoke out early on when Chris passed. Did you get any heat for it, or?
Oh, of course I did. Oh, I mentioned that my brother worked for WWE. Are you kidding me? Everybody accused me of throwing my brother under the bus. I didn't throw my brother under the bus. It was common knowledge. Everybody knew we were in the same company.
Right.
Besides that, I wasn't working for him. If it didn't mean anything, why do you care? Was my big bitch. I don't work for you guys anymore. So what? I mean, from my dad to my brother and everybody about it. I told them all to back off and to kiss my rear end because I didn't say anything bad about anybody. I didn't condone things. I didn't say, hey, let's leave steroids legal. I didn't say anything wrong. You know what I mean?
Right.
I just pretty much said, hey, I heard it from inside tracks because they asked me. I hate these guys all of a sudden that go in there and they say, oh, we know for a fact, It was pretty much I was shutting up the reporter saying, hey, listen, dick. My brother's one of the top dogs there, and there were phone calls or text messages sent to him from Chris. And there was.
Right.
What am I going to lie? The guy put me on the spot. Wasn't throwing anybody under the bus. Some of the stuff is confidential. It ain't confidential anymore. There's no reason to talk about it. I don't know what was said. I never claimed to know what was said. All that I know is that a friend of mine made a horrible mistake, killed somebody I respected, his wife, because I worked against Nancy a lot of times, and he killed a little boy in the process. And it's just a tragedy I hope I never hear about again in our business.
I guess you said in an interview that Chris told you he wanted more time off. Can you expand on that?
Well, he just said to me a lot of times, I feel like I'm losing my mind.
All right.
The business will eat you up if you let it. And when you ask for time off a lot of times, and which they did give Chris a lot of time off. Chris, I found out before, Chris made he made $1 million a year before and only worked 100-something days, man. That's a pretty good year.
Yeah.
And, WWE got made out to be a big bad guy in the whole thing to the Joe public. But in essence, they're really not because they did take care of them. They give them a lot of time off. You have problems, you use psychologists. They give you a psychiatrist, psychologist for your kids or whatever you need. They pay for it all. They pay for your medical, MRIs, whatever. They pay for everything. So it's not like they leave you hanging.
Right.
And that's where I think WWE got stomped on the wrong way. They didn't do that. They helped Chris out as much as they could. But he still was overwhelmed and tired. Lack of top guys. Or the same thereof, always on top. That's why you cannot put all your eggs in one basket and have one Batista. it's worked out better for him now that he's got a Cena and a Batista and a Randy Orton and a Rey Mysterio. You have 4 baby faces. Now you can spread the wealth around a little bit. Now you can spread the belt around a little bit, and it'll mean the same. You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally.
That has helped out the single deal. If they would just learn and take that to the tag team level and have like 8 tag teams that are all good.
What are some of your fondest memories of Chris and Nancy?
Well, Chris was a private guy. Chris is a real private guy. Nancy, of course, as woman, all those years down in Florida when she was with Kevin Sullivan, she played that gimmick to the T. She actually believed in that gimmick. I think her and Kevin lived that gimmick for a while, you know.
Right. Huh.
And both were just good friends, man. I just hated to see the tragedy happen. Any of the guys that died, Benoit, my travel partner, Bulldog, you know.
Right.
Just a lot of guys are just gone now, man, today that I just wish they were still here.
What do you think of the wellness policy? And do you find it ironic since in the old days, guys used to drink and party and wrestle every night with no problems?
Yeah, there's a rebellion factor. You get on guys enough, they're going to rebel, right?
Right.
So, I mean, I don't know if it's good, bad. I guess you could be on a policy. All it is, you know, I'm sure at the end of the day, it's good for the guys, okay? But you're an independent contractor. I don't see how they can tell people that you have to do the wellness policy if you're an independent contractor.
You think Congress should really get involved? Or you
No.
think that's,
Congress should keep their nose out of the wrestling business. They have no beings. Until the congressmen want to get in there and take a bump in the ring and know what our business is like, they need to just shut up and leave it alone.
What do you think that makes Vince so invincible? Money?
No. Vince is a very smart guy. Vince is a smart, shrewd businessman. I believe he would cut the legs off from his mom to make a buck. But that's just, you got to be like that in this business. That's what this business is about. You got to be able to make that kind of decision. I would have no problem in the wrestling business, being in the wrestling business, knowing what it takes for this company to grow. If I was in a power position to have to hire and fire guys, I'd feel sorry, but not for very long.
Right.
This is a business.
You ever talk to your brother about that? Like what it's like to be in this spot?
I told him, I said, take the heat off yourself. Put me in that spot to take the heat off of you. You still be the vice president, but let me be the day-to-day hands-on in the locker room dealing with the guys. If they don't do this thing, send me be the guy there to go say, hey, man, you got one chance to fucking straighten up.
Right.
Oops, excuse me. One chance to straighten up or you're gone. I have no problem doing that for the business if that's my job. I told him that.
Some guys think that your brother's overpaid. What do you think?
Well, listen, in that position, you're a psychiatrist, you're a psychologist, your mom, your dad, your brother, your sister, your boss, your friend, your not friend, you're everything to these guys.
Right.
He's got to answer his phone 24/7 to the guys. He's got to bail guys out of jail. He's got to take guys, put them in treatment. He's got to get guys out of treatment, get guys out of jail. The other day I knew a couple guys that got stranded for flights at the WrestleMania, coming home from spring break from Orlando. You kidding me? You can't get a flight. But he had arranged for people to miss their flights to get on planes, go through this city, that city, that city, that city, and be in a certain city by 4 o'clock. He's got to play travel agent.
Right.
That's his job. And he takes that on. He does do a lot for what he gets paid. I couldn't even tell you what he gets paid because I never asked him what he gets paid. I know it's got to be a lot of money. You're a VP of a publicly traded company.
Right. What's it like to be the father of one of the top athletes in the country?
Just goes to show you, if I'm a good enough dad to be the coach of that athlete and teach that kid everything he needs to know throughout his youth years, and the kid is doing this in college. Granted, your college coaches, I give them all the credit. They pull the athlete out of the man.
Right.
But he had to learn his basics somewhere. I'm a teacher. I've always been a teacher. I should be teaching. And I should be teaching in the craft that I know how to do. And that's wrestling.
What makes your son so good?
Well, he doesn't take a play off. And you practice like you play. He does everything in practice 150%. and he doesn't take a play off. Coaches have made comments at him a bunch of times. Hey, if everybody practiced here like number 33, there's no question in the world we'd have the number one defense in the country. Because in practice, he's running from sideline to sideline, making the play, knows if he does it now, and the game will be easier because he's only playing half the game.
How do you keep his head grounded?
Well, I just have always taught my kids. All my kids, I've taught them, there's always somebody bigger, better, faster, stronger, waiting to step in your shoes. There are no do-overs, and there's no real second chances. Make the most of your opportunity now and take advantage of your opportunity, because it may not be there tomorrow.
Is he a wrestling fan, and do you think he'll ever dabble in the wrestling
Oh,
business?
he's a great wrestling fan, and he can do this business like the back of his hand. He's
Right.
a natural. He's a natural. My wife will not let him near this business.
Is that a good thing or bad thing?
Good for him.
Right.
Good for him.
Talk about the OSU Michigan rivalry.
It's one of the most decorated rivalries in all of sports. The Michigan-Ohio State football rivalry. As soon as that game is done, 365 days a year, the clock starts in the Ohio State locker room. It resets itself and starts over. We have 364, 23 hours. It starts all over again, countdown to Michigan. A big, huge clock the size of a wall in there.
Awesome.
Oh, yeah. It's great. And now, my son's made his mark on that university already. He's got the Bronco Nagurski Trophy in there for Nation's Top Defensive Player. He's got the Butkus for Nation's Top Linebacker. Last year as a junior. He's already up for all 5 awards this year. He'll be up for all 5. Hopefully, God willing, he'll get the Nagurski and the Butkus all in 1 year this year. And he'll be a first 3-time All-American ever at Ohio State.
What was it like when he was being recruited?
Well, I wanted to kill his high school coach.
Why is that?
Because his high school coach went to Ohio State in and talked to him. He said, no, he's going to the University of Minnesota. No, he wasn't going to the University of Minnesota. You need to have the right to take a look and visit all the coaches he wants to talk to. And they told him that his junior year. So Ohio State backed off. I sent the word back out there. No, he'll go look at your school. Ohio State offered him a scholarship the week later.
Did he get a lot of offers like cars, money, and all that kind of?
No. That's a
Movies
lie.
and stuff,
They
right.
don't do that.
Right.
That's a lie. Well, I mean, the guys do get cars
Right.
along the way illegally
Right.
somehow, but no. James had offers from Notre Dame, Ohio State, Michigan State, UCLA, and Minnesota.
What about Zubaz? What was your involvement with that company?
I was 25% owner.
Whatever happened? Is the company still around?
It went down, and now it's coming back again online. You can get Zubaz again online. They're going to offer me a package here pretty soon.
Cool.
So I may be involved in it again. I know I supplied my daughter's hockey team and her softball team with royal blue and white zebra print Zubaz. So we'll see, man.
We recently did a shoot interview with Bill Irwin, and he had wished that you guys and his brother had a longer run in AWA. What are your memories of some of those matches?
Oh, man, we could have had a great run with what was their name?
Long Riders?
Long Riders or Rough Riders? Long Riders.
Yeah,
Long Riders.
Riders.
Yeah, Bill was a big Harley guy, or Bill was the cowboy, and Scott was the Harley guy. Scott was a phenomenal worker too, man. He died way before his time,
Right.
early in his 30s, I think.
Yeah.
And from cancer, I think, or something like that.
Cancer.
And Bill was a good guy too, man. I always had fun wrestling both those guys. Both good guys.
You talked earlier on about WWE Hall of Fame. Has there been talk of it recently with you guys?
Rumor has it they're talking 2010 LA.
Nice.
Because it'll be big. It'll be a big 30,000 seat arena to do the Hall of Fame thing in,
Right.
I don't know, bro. Right now, I don't even know if I want to go in the Hall of Fame.
Why is that?
Well, I don't need to be in the Hall of Fame to prove to my fans what I've accomplished in my career. The true wrestling fan knows and has appreciated that and has been there with me in my down and lowest hour in this business. Like when Hawk died. The fan has been there. I mean, if you would have seen my website, still to this day, I still get them from Ireland and Scotland and Paris. Hey, bro, sorry to hear about Hawk. Some people are just finding out. That's how over the gimmick was. They still think we're going strong. Because they see 24/7. They don't know.
Right,
It's right now, And I'm telling you, I probably will go in. My kids kill me when I say that. They say, "Oh no, you got it, Dad. You got it. You deserve it. And I suppose in that aspect, yeah, maybe I do. Maybe if I change my mind and the wrestling business deserves it, then cool. It's all about the business. It ain't about the individual anymore. It's about the business.
Is there anyone that made it that surprised you, and is there anyone who didn't make it that you thought would have?
No. The biggest surprise to me, I think, is when I look and I watch the Hall of Fame banquet on TV. I just get real irritated when I got a brother in there that I see all these guys that were past and present that were there at the banquet.
Right.
Why am I not there? It's like they're trying to say, okay, well, maybe the guy maybe he wasn't a wrestler. A part of the greatest tag team in the history of our business ever. Probably will go down in history as, and I say this proud, as the best tag team ever in professional wrestling. How can you insult the fans by not having my face there? It's only going to add to credibility to your company. And that ain't a power trip on me. I'm just being real. I'm being real to the business.
If people say to you, do you consider yourself a good worker, or was the Road Warriors a good gimmick? What would you say? Was it a combination of the two?
I think it was a combination of the two. We were nowhere near good workers in the beginning. It was the gimmick. And then, like I said, we had great guys, the Flairs and the Dusties and everybody teaching us. After we were done with the Four Horsemen and the Midnight Express, we were pretty decent workers.
Okay.
We could call our own matches and ad-lib if something went wrong and continue on a match because you had to be taught those kind of things for years. Yeah, you're not going to pick them up in 2 days. 5 years with Flair is when I learned. And that's the only way you can do it is by learning.
What are your thoughts on UFC and MMA compared to pro wrestling?
I think it's the new pro wrestling. I think the MMA and UFC is going to be around for a long time. I think it's going to replace boxing. And, wrestling better watch out. I mean, it's growing so fast.
Definitely.
I see it as one of the next big bad boys around, man. You know what I see? I see Vince getting into UFC.
I know there was talk of one time when Shane was going to look into buying Pride, and I don't know.
I think that Vince would be the consummate owner of a shoot company. He would.
You think it would work with Vince behind it, or?
Yeah, sure. As long as you don't try to make it wrestling.
Right, like Inoki.
You got to leave it fighting, man. You got to leave it real. If you try to tamper with it and make it a work, it's going to kill it. Is
that why you think New Japan's suffering a lot right now? Because Inoki did a lot of stuff with the shoot fighting and brought it into the pro wrestling world, or?
No. You know what's killing that over there right now? There's 50 companies. Yeah. There used to be 2.
Right.
That's what's killing that company. They're killing everything. There's too many companies. They need to govern that again over in Japan and make it 2 or 3 companies. That's it. Get rid of the little small ones.
Last year, I think you did one match for TNA. How did that come about? It was just a one-time deal?
Well, it was Scott Steiner had punctured his lung in Puerto Rico and had to get an operation, had to take a cruise back, which took a week.
Right.
And they asked me to fill in. Stepped through the curtain, got another standing ovation. I mean, fans loved it and they wanted to see it. I thought I was going to fill in for Scotty for 3 months, but never happened.
Did you like the match, or?
No, I didn't necessarily like the match, but they should have done again. They didn't do typically what you need to do in our business. You had a substitute, not a middle of the card guy, a top dog substitute. They should have switched the titles. They should have switched the titles, and they should have switched them and gave them to Steiner and I. You could have beat one of us the next week on TV, but a pay-per-view event, you should have given to us. That would have been the business thing to do. See, there's the problem in our business. Nobody steps up and does the business thing to do.
You think it's because of egos, or is it just because they're...
Right. Answer that yourself with the egos. Of course it was egos, man. God, yes.
What do you do today?
I go around, do personal appearances and autograph sessions and motivational speaking, and that's all I really want to do. If I can go there and speak to young athletes or young people thinking about getting into wrestling or high school athletes, that's all I want to do.
Is it hard to adjust to life after pro wrestling right now? Or?
No, not for me. It's not.
You think you'll be back in it full swing in some aspect?
I hope that I've achieved enough in this wrestling business and proved to enough people that I know the wrestling business. And if I'm not back working for one of the companies, be honest with you, it's their loss, man. I know I can add to the company.
Obviously, you still have a passion for the business.
Yeah, I got a passion for the business, man. I like to see it done the right way.
What do you miss most and least about being a full-time wrestler?
Well, you miss the camaraderie of the guys. That's fun. The least you miss is the traveling.
Right.
I don't miss airports. I don't miss hotels. You know, don't mind seeing them once in a while, but I don't miss them.
Right. What are your thoughts on the lack of kayfabe today in wrestling?
I think it's a misstart. I think they need to get back to that.
Any favorite rib stories or road stories?
No, man, there are some funny ones. Brad Ringens, who was an Olympic wrestler, has got some stuff on tape that Hawk doing Eddie Murphy arguing against getting interviewed by Walter Cronkite.
Right.
That's pretty funny. Ribbing some Japanese girls as they're working out on some of their apparatus over in Japan, which is so funny to see people try to work out on. Some of that stuff over there is pretty cool, man. But it's really, I can't really iron down one specific deal.
Who are some of your favorite guys to work with, and who are some of your least favorite guys to work with?
Most favorite guys to work with were the Four Horsemen, hands down. You know, that whole era of the NWA, everybody from the NWA was great. From Jim Cornette to the Midnight Express, to Dusty, Nikita, everybody was great. Everybody was great.
I guess if you were to look back and you had to give your grandkids a tape of 3 matches from your career, what matches would they be?
I'd give them a War Games. I'd give them a scaffolding match.
Right.
And I'd give them a title match with the Horsemen anytime. And like title match in Chicago against Tully and Arn was a great one. We did a referee switch.
Right.
Pretty cool matches right there, man. Top of the line. Excitement for 30 minutes, you know. Everybody standing on their feet for 30 minutes. What's going to happen, you know, type of crap. So,
any regrets looking back? Would you have done anything differently?
yeah. Couple of situations I probably would have stuck up myself a little more and bitched somebody out. Instead of just trying to be business and going by easy.
Right.
Because that's what's missing in this business, man. Guys don't stick up for themselves enough.
Where do you see yourself in the next 10 years?
Well, I know what I'm going to be doing for the next 10 years. I'm going to be a personal finance guy for my kid
Right.
in the NFL somewhere. I mean, the writing's on the wall with him. He's supposed to go top 5 first round next year, so we'll see. And as long as he does, my wife and I are going to make sure that his money is invested properly. And he'll never have to depend on another partner or anything like I had to do.
Right.
And let his finances be set forever first. Then he can go play and have fun.
Is there anything you want to say to your fans out there that you were never given a chance to say maybe on the WWE DVD or something that...
You know, it's nothing that I really I've said before, man. The Road Warriors Yellow D has got some of the greatest fans in the world. Some of the greatest fans in the world are wrestling fans. And people don't give them enough credibility and credit.